21?
21, yes.
All right. Can you tell me, she's from UK, can you tell me what are your concerns now? How has it disrupted your studies? What are your concerns right now regarding university, not reopening till January of next year?
For me, I don't think it's going to have as significant an impact in the university's decision to open in January, as I am a one-year program and therefore I will be ending my studies in September. So I finished class just as lockdown started. So in that sense, I was quite lucky. However, there is a lot of worry about access to resources and sitting exams and completing assignments, because now it is exam season and I do have to write my dissertation and other assignments, which will be due in September. And that is the majority of my grade. And then, of course, there is a worry of following graduation, what happens next in a country which is on lockdown, where the economy isn't so stable at the moment and where jobs are not as readily available.
Okay, so you're concerned about how you're going to graduate and how you're going to submit your theses and how you're going to move on forwards. But has the university provided you support for this?
I believe they are trying their best in terms of, we were given extensions on our deadlines. For exams, we're now sitting them from home and we're now given 48 hours to complete an otherwise 3-hour paper. So they are trying to mitigate, and there's also there's a no detriment policy that I think is quite popular in the UK, whereby if you completed a certain percentage of a module, then if your grade then drops in the next assignment, they will not consider that an appropriate indication of your capabilities. They would rather just average out your grades from before. But I think a lot of these policies are more applicable to undergraduates who are not finalists, because they don't have as much riding on this 1 year as a finalist or a postgraduate 1 year student would.
Okay.
So I believe the universities are trying, but at the same time, there are disparities between who is benefiting and who is not.
Who's not? Okay. Has it affected you in any way other than your education? Are you stressed about this, or are you concerned that you don't see much how to go forward? Is that a concern for you?
There is a big concern on how to move forward with this, because there's not as much access to jobs right now. And I am very much in that stage where I do need to consider finding a job and starting my career. In terms of stress from the university, I think that was there during the beginning phases of lockdown, because this is quite specific to SOAS and other universities in the UK. But just before lockdown started, there was a month of broken education because educators were on strike. So we've had about 5 weeks of not having stable classes. So there was that added pressure whereby we didn't have full access to content as much as educators were trying. Assignments were due, they were getting pushed back. We were preparing for in-class assignments that could no longer happen. So there was a lot of stress initially, but now I think it's easing out a bit more.
Okay, but are there a group of students who are not able to cope?
From my friends, I believe there are, and I believe the university is trying their best in terms of, we were able to submit mitigating circumstances without certification, which has never been done before. So if you had any concerns, if you were struggling, I feel the most that they can do at the moment, and the most that they are doing, is providing further extensions on deadlines. But if you are struggling to meet your work requirements due to a lack of resources, internet connection, whatever it is, an extension in deadlines is not helping in any way. It's just prolonging that stress.
Okay, so you're concerned what's going to happen now? How are you going to move forward, right?
Yes.
You are. Okay, let me come to Ali. Hadi, you have an exam tomorrow, so I'm going to let you, after the student panelists are done, you all can stay on, or you may stay on, or you can...
I'm fine with it.
You're fine with it. You're ready for exam tomorrow. Okay. Okay, Ali Hadi, you are an engineering student, Manipal Institute of Technology. Yes. You're in your fourth year?
Third year.
Fourth sem?
Yeah, second year.
Okay, what are your concerns? What happened exactly? Now, the latest I understand is the online exams. All of you have
Yeah,
protested and you don't want the online exams, right?
what happened was the basic problem was the software. Like, it was not ready. It was not a complete software, so we needed something better. And the major issue is the stress that the students are having right now because of the lockdown and all that.
What is the stress? When you say stress, what do you mean?
Well, they might be having familial issues and all that. Like, we might not know what the actual problems are. They might have some internal issues, internal matters that we can't, really, disturb them with that. So basically, these problems, and we don't have the, basic online infrastructure to conduct a proper online exam. And right now, the issue we're having is the lack of time, I guess. Like, they have exams, like there are exams happening right now, and this is because the online platform that was there previously was not good enough, so they brought in Microsoft Teams to conduct the exams now. They have cancelled our end semester examinations. They haven't really told us exactly how they're going to prorate the marks, and maybe the internals will be scaled or something like that. So the internal exams are being conducted on Microsoft Teams, and I'm not exactly sure how it's being conducted in other colleges, but in our college, it's through Microsoft Teams, and they have a 1.5 hour exam,
Okay.
and where they
So
have
your concern is you're not familiar with the technology and how to
exactly
use it, and you're scared that something will happen. Probably it won't be proper. That's why.
because we don't have the online infrastructure. Basically, there's
Okay.
no proper network connection.
Okay. All that is a concern. But other than that, other than your exams, what are you concerned about now?
I might not be that much concerned about, like, me as myself. I'm not that much concerned, but my friends, my seniors, basically, they have issues. Basically, there might be an economic recession, so they won't get, the jobs they want, and you know, unemployment issues and all that. So and there are many people with the, like I said, the stress and all that, the mental health issues. That's basically the main problem that's happening here. Hello. Um, okay.
Yeah, I think Mary has gone offline. Yeah, okay, she's back.
She has to be unmuted.
Dr. Mary, just a minute.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yes, we can hear you. No, that's okay.
We are having terrible rains here, and we have concerns regarding the electricity. So I may be going on and off. All right. So Hadi, you were saying that one thing was the technology part of it, but you're also concerned that other students, the final years, may have more problems than the ones in between, ones in the
Exactly, yeah.
semester.
And those who are joining colleges also, like from schools to colleges.
Okay, the new batch that has come in, so that is a concern.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. But otherwise, are you concerned about the disease per se? Are you worried that you're not going back to college, right? You're not in college.
No.
But
they haven't given an exact date, but they've told they might open in August or September. But I don't think that is a possibility, because considering the rate of increase of the
yes, so India suddenly has a very high rate now, so probably it'll be postponed. Yes.
And our university is also in the district of Udupi, which has seen a big incline in the number of cases. In the past
All right.
few days.
But are you concerned about the disease per se that you will?
Well, when I do attend college, maybe, yeah, because we never know what kind of people are coming to the college. So,
okay.
And we never know what could happen.
Okay, so you're concerned about that. Okay, let me come to Christia. Christian Lomas, you are in the gap year, right? You are
Yes, I am.
waiting to go into medicine or trying to go into medicine?
Yes, I'm in the application cycle right now.
Okay, so how has this lockdown and reopening, was University of Florida, was there a lockdown in Florida?
Yes, they sent all the students, they put the classes online. Most students went home. So many students relocated back to their home cities.
Okay. So is the online?
Yes, it's still going on for the rest of the summer, and they're also trying to keep it on there for fall. But they're also planning on reopening for the fall as
Okay,
well.
so they're reopening. What are your concerns now, Christian?
Yeah, for me, since I'm in my gap year, I'm also looking for a job while applying to medical school. And as Ali and Zara already mentioned, it's very concerning to go into the job market right now because jobs are not easy to find, as well as just applying to medical school, having many deadlines being extended, MCAT dates being canceled. Also being in a different environment has been particularly challenging for me. This being back home in a more uncontrolled environment does not facilitate learning in the best way. Resources are a bit more limited. I personally, I know many other students rely on, university resources such as free printing, different food resources, libraries, and those things aren't available, and it's difficult for universities to have that availability online. So I'd say those are some of the big challenges that I'm facing.
So how are you coping, Christian?
That's a great question. I find that staying in contact with my university friends has really helped. Although the online format is definitely not the same as meeting my friends in person. Any type of communication with people that I could talk to, people that I can vent to, really helps with the stress of being back home and just the change in environment. But those are some of the ways I've been coping. I'm trying to keep a routine, getting used to finding newer things to relieve stress, since things that I used to do, like going outside and biking or going to the store, aren't easier to do right now. So just finding a new routine, finding different ways to cope really helps.
Okay. That's good.
I'm just keeping exceptionally busy. I've also been very reliant on my phone and keeping in contact with all my friends. I've also piled on the workload. I got quite lucky in terms of I work in a student role at SOAS as well, and they transitioned us online quite thankfully. So they've been running critical analysis programs and having talks with incoming students and just generally Zoom calls like these. So I've been quite busy with that. I'm not very good at keeping a routine, and my home is definitely not. So a lot of time is spent in just trying to focus. So I think the best way to cope has been just to keep busy and just to keep going, because the moment you take a break, you start overthinking, and then it's just downhill from there.
Okay, all right. What about you, Ali Hadi? How are you coping?
Well, I try to keep myself busy doing things like, my hobbies and stuff, like basically drawing and all that. We had our online classes for a while, and they've stopped it now because we are having our exams. Basically, they're done with their portions. We, as my branch, didn't have much of an online class per se. So I basically had nothing much to do, and I kept contact with my, university friends, like Zara and Christia mentioned. So,
Okay. So all three of you are very much online. Do you think it's a little bit too much?
well, there's too much is a very vague word, I would say, because
It's vague. All right.
because it depends on the person. It
Oh,
depends on how you can handle the, pressure.
okay.
So if you are,
Are you all? This is to three of you. Are you all dependent on the online platform for everything?
Right now, absolutely.
Right now, yeah.
Absolutely.
Right now, yeah.
So, do you say that you're dependent on it now?
Well,
Access to the wider world, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So what do you see? Suppose we go back to our old ways. Do you see yourself, lessening your online time, or how do you see it?
Well, mainly, yeah, because we'd be going back to our colleges, we'd be talking to our friends, and we'll have a much more wholesome time with them. And
Okay. Tell me, how many of you are using online gaming?
Yes, definitely.
You are. Okay. Ali Hadi, are you?
stopped actually. I used to play long back. No, now I don't.
You don't. Zara, online gaming?
A little bit, not too much.
Not too much. Okay. So all three of you seem to be coping very well. But I mean, we hope that, what is your advice? Because in this panel, we have, teachers, we have principals, we have doctors. What is your advice? I'll start with Christia. What's your advice to the panelists? Because they want to know, we will need to find solutions to, what is going on. What is your advice to the panelists?
Yeah, I would say, especially for professors, just being very attentive to the specific needs of each student. I know it's very difficult when you have large classrooms with many students, but it's important that everyone's environment is very different from where they are. So it's important to know that individual students may have different disparities just depending on where they're from. So just being, lenient on different deadlines and open to different problems that different students would have.
Okay, but you're saying it's a large 250 students, one professor taking care of them. Isn't that a bit too much to expect?
I would say it's definitely difficult, but I do think that many professors will take on different teaching assistants, having different students or graduate students helping them out in the class so that you don't have, over 200 students approaching one person, but you have, other students that can take on emails and other concerns. I think that really helps with that kind of process.
Okay, Zara, your advice to the panelists?
I think just cutting everybody a bit of slack. We are in very unprecedented times, and I think it's important to understand that you are trying your best, everyone else is trying their best. So all of us may not get the grades that we intended, or we may not be producing the high level of work as we used to be, but considering the situations and the lack of resources that we are facing, it's the best that we can do, and that we should appreciate our output in such times.
All right, okay. Hadi, what about you? Your advice to the panelists?
Yeah, what Christian and Zara said basically, they're absolutely right. And the thing is, give everyone a break basically, because we don't know exactly.
You want your teachers to be lenient this time, at this
Yeah,
time?
because
all right, okay.
They've never know what kind of processes everyone is going through.
Okay, right. No, but are any of you helping out your other colleagues? Are you all helping out?
A lot of my friends don't have their study materials, because when the lockdown had happened here, many people left back to their homes. They stay in the hostels here, and they went back home. They did not take most of their belongings with them, so they had behind a lot of their books, their study materials, laptops, and all that. So they really don't have the access to information and such. So I've tried to help them by giving out, sending pictures of my lab manual and all that.
Oh, you're doing that. All right. That's very kind of you. That's good. Anyone else? What about Christia?
I was going to say,
are you supporting
a very similar
others?
thing. Yeah, since I've already graduated, I've taken many of the classes that my friends have already are taking now. It's very helpful to send them textbooks, as you were saying, since a lot of students can't really go to the libraries or afford new textbooks. So I tend to send resources to them if I can, helping them out with assignments if that's allowed. And yeah, just trying to be a welcoming place for them to talk about and vent about any problems that they're having.
Okay. What about you, Zara? Helping anyone out?
Yeah, quite similar to Christia. My friends and I have also been proofreading each other's work, and we have Google Docs going with all access to links of current articles that are relevant to our work, because we are doing international studies and diplomacy, so it is very current, and less books, more articles and talks. So we share all the resources that we find, generally just talk through essay plans or anything anyone may need. So we have been making the most of our online access and online platforms just to ease everyone else's process. for his time.
All right. That's very, very nice to hear that all of you are helping out and supporting each other. So I want to thank all three of you for your views and talking to our panelists and telling us what exactly are your problems. So if you want to stay, you're welcome. If you want to leave also, that is okay with us. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. So let me just move on now. I will talk. I want to bring in Dr. Sandeep Sanshetty. He's from India. He's the Vice Chancellor of a very big university here. Dr. Sandeep, you heard our students. You have engineering colleges, you have pharmacy, medicine, nursing, a lot of colleges under you. The students are under stress. They're worried. Some of them have gone home. They haven't taken their material with them. Some are in phases of learning. And what was your advice to you as a vice chancellor of a big university? What was your advice to your faculty and your students?
Hey, good evening, Dr. Mary Matthew, and greetings to everyone, particularly to Russell D'Souza, Dr. Russell D'Souza, who made sure that many of us participate and share our views. We all know that it is a very challenging time for all of us because there is a lot of unpredictability in the situation. And in India, as it is, in normal conditions, the unpredictabilities were high because of our diversity, because of our volumes, because of the size which we handle. And there are various other factors where the language and the support or infrastructure also comes into picture. And therefore, one size fits all probably doesn't work in India, and that has made our life very, very difficult. Let's agree to that. We can say that all of us in education here, that includes Dr. Mary Matthew, I'm sure, have tried our best to support our students in a big way. Number one, I would say, is that the academic continuity has been maintained somehow using the online methods, though the difficulties were there that people didn't have the right kind of access or devices, or they didn't carry their books or materials because they were forced out or they were made to leave in a hurry. But what we have done is, whether it's emails or WhatsApp or maybe the Zoom meetings or any other online platforms, LMSs, everything on the earth has been used and many new things have surfaced. So we have made use of everything. Every flexibility is given to a given teacher that which platform they would like to use and how they go about.
Yeah, but Dr. Sanshetty, just one moment. You heard Ali Hadi saying that they're not comfortable with the online, exam. So how have you managed that?
I'll come to the exam. Just a minute. I'll finish on the delivery part. Okay. So I would simply say that the delivery part has been fairly successful. The attendances have been good. The feedback is reasonably good, and the completion rate is fairly high. And the flexibility was also given. I'll just give an example that how we supported them in this. For example, people didn't carry their books, but then we immediately in the first week itself bought 10,000 licenses to extend our library through a remote X login. So everyone can see all the resources electronically. And that is how we probably bought one of the highest number of Zoom licenses in the country to support our classes. So all that was done.
Dr. Sanshetty, were there any students who couldn't access online? Because there may be were there any students in remote areas who couldn't access the online learning?
Yes, there were around 5 to 10% who were there. And for that also, we told them that the flexibility will be used when they come back, or when they're allowed to come back, they'll be given all their due. No one would be forced. For example, a complete relaxation on attendance was there. Similarly, relaxations on the timelines were also given, as was being said by Christiania and Zara also, that the relaxations were there. But having done the academic part, the examinations is the biggest bottleneck we are having right now. As was said by Ali, I think this has certainly caught attention of all Indian institutions. And of course, we did not decide because we are a very big, you can say, population. We were in the process, but then we found that many other big institutions faced some music and difficulty. And that induction effect also came into picture with our students also. So we decided and did a survey, by the way, which survey was launched 3-4 days back. And it was finished yesterday. 13th was the last date. And we found that 90% of them have said They are not ready for online. So that is one thing. And therefore, we will also take a call like some of the prominent institutions in the country, IITs or Manipal or various others have taken, that this semester the progression will be based on their internal marks. And this semester the progression will be on certain things, except for final years where they are graduating and they are doing only projects and all that. So we could conduct the Viva, etc. for them very easily. So I think we have solution for everything. I must say that the delays are not going to be worrying us much, because in academic domain, we have a lot of flexibility. We can make, instead of 5 days a week work, 6 days a week work if we start late. Instead of 6 hours a day work, we can make it 7 hours a day work. And once again, we gain a week. We can cut down the holidays or the breaks, which are there sometimes in India. There are more number of holidays. And then we can cut down on them. And therefore, once again, we recover. So as of now, even if we start a month or 2 months late, I think there is not a worry for the incoming semester or incoming batch. The real worry for them, the incoming ones, would be what happens to their jobs, because India is very famous for on-campus job placements. We were very, very big, and everyone craves to be big in this. And students actually come to top-notch institutions primarily that they get the first crack on the job. And we really don't know that what to promise them and what to tell them and how to support them. So I think that is one big worry right now. And Dr. Mary, if you allow me, the second big worry, which obviously is about the fee and the finance. And it's not only in India, it's throughout the world. People are talking, if you're not coming to classes, what happens? Why should we pay? And on the other hand, people like us are trying to say that nothing has changed in terms of expenses for us, except for some basic laxity or maintenance cost. But then our cost in terms of investing in technology and delivering everything online has gone extensively up. So in short run, I find this dichotomy, this difficulty of whether the cost is going up or down, I think is a challenge for all of us. And
I think that's very important, because people think we're not going to college, we're not going to the university, why should we pay the fees? But then when you're supporting, giving them online platform learning, they don't understand the expenses that are involved in it. That is very important. Yes.
Yeah, you are very right. We are trying to educate people, because not even a single person has been retrenched or removed from the job. Not even a single space has been given on rent for other users. They are all remaining as it is, as a fixed expenditure. But you can understand all the softwares, all the books, all the journals going online and access going online is adding to the cost. Yes, in long run, after 2-3 years, if we run like that, technology might reduce the cost, but not in the immediate instance. So we are going through that transient, I would say. And the concerns which were raised by, let's say, Zara in terms of strike or some delay or some gap, I think that does not happen in India. Indian education system has been able to maintain continuity. What was mentioned by Christia was about the technology, and I would say that the technology has been adopted by us like anything. Let me tell you, it's like a fish to water. We have adopted the technology like anything in India. The only challenge right now is that the examinations, the technology is available, but we have not been able to adopt because of certain reasons. But going further, we have planned, like in my institution in SRM, even when they come to my campus, I will give them online examinations. Why? Because I have to maintain social distances. So from the comfort of their rooms, homes, whatever it may be, or wherever they are, they can do. So online may still come in a very big way, whether you are sitting in US and giving my exam, or you are in Australia, or you are in the SRM campus itself, you can possibly give. So I would say technology.
Dr. Sanshetty, there is a question in the chat box. It says, what do the students think about the integrity of online examinations?
Okay, it's rather a philosophical question. I would say the integrity issues remain in the offline also. We have to educate everyone that it is in their interest to maintain the integrity, because if they don't want to learn and pass, probably no one can help later. At this point of time, in the later part of life, when they work for 45 years, who will relate them? If they don't do well and they get caught, they'll be thrown away from the job, or they themselves will become incapable. So I think open book examination system is a new concept which is coming. The team examinations, group examinations, and group evaluations are also coming. So I would not mind, and we are actually open to going for group examinations as well as going for the open book examination. And therefore, I think this issue of proctoring them are not very big. In any case, technology provides the biggest proof if someone is trying to cheat or do something. I would say that that would be an issue which will be much later in my list in terms of tackling. Those who are doing cheating, they are probably harming themselves, and those who want to harm themselves, nothing much can be done by few number of teachers or academicians. So I would say that there are much more bigger issues. One bigger issue for me would be how to counsel them in these different difficult times. And many of you are experts from that domain. We are trying to make sure that 24/7 lines are available, number of counselors are available, every single email is responded to, and wherever possible, if we can understand the problems upfront, give the standard answers through FAQ so that they don't have to bother too much. I think that is one issue which we are trying to do. The second issue is we have to go to the very highest level of flexibility. Flexibility, for example, I was kind of personally ready, was that I will allow a student to appear in my online examination, which I'm doing now. Suppose a student is not happy, an hour after the examination, he can send an email and say, hey, I was not doing well because of so-and-so reasons. Please don't consider this as an examination. I will appear in the later one, and I will take the best of anyone. So like that,
okay. So you definitely have good systems in place. Have you lost any students or to COVID or any, are you worried about, has that happened in your university?
No, none, fortunately. None. Fingers crossed, we never know because it's escalating in Chennai as well as in many other big cities. Yeah. But we are supporting them in a big way. Our hospitals have been taken over by the government authorities, and a part of campus is for isolating the local people as and when needed. People traveling to Chennai from abroad or from other parts of the country, they are isolated or quarantined here. Okay. So we are providing a debate facility, but touch wood, nothing has happened to us, or not even to a single staff till now.
Staff, okay, but your staff and your teachers must be working overtime right now.
Yes, to some extent, some PG students are also there. Yes, they are working overnight, handling the COVID situation, but rest of the things possibly are happening at their comfort zone. Government of Tamil Nadu in our state allowed us to reopen, but they have given us the flexibility that only 50% of staff has to come. And in turn, we have started, and we were given flexibility to all departments and faculties and others that they can choose the days they want to come. And for some reason, they can't travel, they can't come because of certain restricted zones. We will be flexible. We are taking best care. And they are also taking care of health and hygiene in terms of testing, reporting.
What about the psychological support? Are you providing psychological support to your students?
I can't say much on that because the initiation has happened only 10 days back in terms of physical movement allowing. So I have no reported cases for that. But student counseling, yes. COVID-related special helplines have been created. Grievance systems have been done. Those students tend to write everything on grievance. Everything today's time is a grievance for them. But we respond to them. We also made some standard Q&A for them. So we're trying to tackle the situation. Fortunately, nothing has gone beyond our control. We are pretty much comfortable in that. But yes, some issues will remain. For example, you said the assessment, the fairness of assessments also will be a challenge. Not only the fairness from the student side, what right and wrong they are doing. The fairness of assessments on our part can also be something would be there. The cost overruns will also be there. The learning difficulties will not be addressed very easily. So there are many issues which will probably take years to settle down.
Yes,
but I think
because
those who survive the transient probably do well.
Yeah, but this is the first time experience for all of us. I'd like to go to Peter Morse. Peter Morse, can you hear us? Can you unmute? Dr. Peter? You just muted yourself. Yes.
Okay. Yes. Sorry.
Yes. You heard Zara from the UK perspective, the difficulties that they are facing. Do you have anything any systems or in place that you can tell us about? Because certain universities are doing well, so some are not. How is it there in UK?
Yes, there's obviously some regional differences as well, because I noted that Zara has referred to the postponement of courses and the reopening of campuses until January 21. Others, like ourselves, are reopening on the 5th of October. We would normally open in September, but it's postponed by 1 month, and that's to allow for the possibility of quarantine being necessary. So we'll have the welcome week in September, and allowing that welcome week after quarantine if students have to travel from different parts of the world and spend some time in quarantine. But that's uncertain and is a developing situation. On the aspects that were also mentioned to date, the examinations seems to be one of the important aspects, in the fairness of those and the integrity and robustness of the systems. And in medicine and dentistry, we have run online finals examinations. They're obviously high stakes professional examinations. And in addition to giving 23 hours an open book, we had to be respectful of our General Dental Council and Medical Council regulators, that we convinced them that the students had the appropriate skills. And that was achieved through special software to enable the comparison of answers. It's called Turnitin. And we were able to run that very successfully. Students respected the integrity aspect of it, and we found that that ran, and in other dental schools in the UK and medical schools, ran very smoothly. The other point I just want to make briefly is the number one stress inducer as we teach is if a student feels that they're falling behind and they cannot perform to their full potential. And that may be due to childcare arrangements at home or shielding. So we've put tremendous emphasis on individualized contacting of students and making sure everyone has access and is not feeling disadvantaged. And the systems that we're developing online are making sure that they're very engaging, but also that they are simple. And one of the aspects of the University of Dundee is saying that simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. If we can make it simple, accessible, and yet still engaging, those are the principles that we are operating to at the moment.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Peter. Can I go to, is Nancy there? Nancy Macharia from Kenya? Yes. Hi, Nancy.
Hi.
Yeah, I wanted to, we have spoken about the students. I want to come to the teachers. You're in charge. Please give us your designation. You're from Kenya.
Yes.
And you're in charge of?
Teachers.
Teachers, yeah. Right. So it's a teachers association, right?
Yeah, we are a commission, a service commission. Okay, we are the employer of teachers.
Okay, so obviously the teachers are having a very difficult time. They need to, give more time. At the same time, they have to look after their family. Tell us, what are the problems that the teachers are facing? And when you say teachers, you're talking about schools, right?
Yes.
All right.
I think one of the major problems that teachers are facing is that actually they do not know what to do. The government has come up with some online teaching. But, of course, as you know, we are a diverse country. and we don't have electricity everywhere. We can't reach all the children. And I think the teachers are caught at crossroads. They have these online lessons they can give to the students in towns and the more well-endowed places. But what do they do with those other students who can't access everything? And therefore, teachers are lost. They are at home. They are afraid also of getting sick, because how do they get to give these online classes? Some of them also do not have electricity and gadgets. How do they get,
How do you teach without electricity, right?
What it means is that there is inequality, isn't it? There are those who will get taught, there are those who won't get taught, and teachers are kind of caught at the crossroads about what to do. And should schools open, what will they do with the mixture of these children who could get taught and those who couldn't get taught? And of course, obviously, they are also worried about themselves and the sicknesses and what to expect in the future.
Yeah, that's true, because they have families too, so they have to take care of the families. So that's very important. And may I come to you? And you are a teacher? Yes. Can you unmute, Anne, please? Dr. Derek, can you unmute Anne, please? Miss Anne? Yes, yes.
Hello.
Miss Anne, you are teaching, you're more into vulnerable children, right? Teaching of vulnerable children.
I teach in a secondary school, which has a few pupils, but my particular responsibility is with the vulnerable pupils and support.
Yeah. So teachers who teach vulnerable students will have extra burden. Would they feel more pressurized than the teachers who teach regular children?
I think where the particular issues in some of their households, there's a lot of individual contact with the homes, phoning them very regularly. Many of those homes don't have internet connection, so taking paper copies or posting paper copies to those families so that the pupils can do the work.
Yeah, okay, because that seems to be a recurring thing, even in Kenya, what Nancy said, that homes that do not have electricity, teachers don't have electricity, students don't have electricity, how do we help them? So this probably is a very good way that is expensive though, but you have to support the children who require them. So thank you, Ms. Anne. I'll go to Enid Israel. Ms. Enid, can you unmute Ms. Enid, please? Dr. Derek and Dr. Russell, can you unmute?
Yeah, we're doing it.
Okay.
All right. Ms. Enid, you're a parent instructor.
Yes.
So how parents obviously have been having a very difficult time because of this infection. What is your role, and how are you doing? How are you helping the parents in this pandemic, during this pandemic?
Okay, first of all, what we arrange in Israel is many things that they do online, like Zoom. Like every hour they have something else for parents, like they have something in dancing or cooking, or they have lectures. I gave lecture. Everything is for free for the parents, so they have a lot of time that they felt that the people are going with them.
No, but that is okay if parents are at home. What happens to parents who are working?
Okay, some of them work from home.
Okay.
And some of them, okay. Another thing, I'm from a kibbutz. In Israel, we have kibbutzim.
Yes.
So in a kibbutz, we have a very large place of nature. So the kids can be outside of the house. They don't have to be inside the house. So the parents can do a lot of things. Also, what I suggest for parents is meeting to speak about the problems, so they can manage.
Share their problems.
Yes, they have a place so that somebody hear them and can help them to cope everything. So what else you want me to share with you?
No, but how do parents take care of themselves? Do you give advice? Because they are busy taking care of their children, but they also require self-care. So what advice are you giving the parents how to look after themselves? Because they also need to look after themselves.
Yes, that's what all the things that we are doing for parents is, as I started to say, that we are doing with kids, but some things in the evenings. We are doing some lectures to give parents the tools how to manage, and also a place to speak with each other and to share what they have to do. Also, what I for example, learn how to do is doing the course for clients. So we are meeting together, we give them tools, we give them how to work with kids, like authority and limits and all these things we are doing online.
Okay, even teaching parents how to look after themselves.
Yes, and what we suggest is, like in the airplane, when there is they doing the guidance, what to do if something happens. Say first of all, you give the mother the oxygen, and then you give it to the child. And all the time we tell them, you take care of yourself. Sometimes, even if you find something, you have to find something that doing good for yourself, so you have the power. So you have I believe that when parents get they know what to do and how to do it, so they have more power. And also I tell them, you have to say to the kids, even if you don't know what's going to be, you have to say that you are doing everything, because every parent do everything to help the kids to feel safe. And when the parent feels safe, then he can make the kids also feel good with himself.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Enid, because I need to go to Dr. Kevin now. Dr. Kevin Church. Well, thank you, Enid.
Okay.
Kevin, can you please? Yes, Dr. Kevin, yes. Thank you for joining us. Now, I want to deal with what you are a pediatrician, right?
Yeah.
Now, what is it during this pandemic? What is it that you're seeing right now?
I think here and around the world, we're seeing that this pandemic is not a pediatric or children's pandemic. That really means that most of the disease and the presentation are in adults and older adults. What we are seeing is that children are getting infected, okay, meaning that they get the virus. And then they have a course that is either very mild or asymptomatic. But what we're seeing is that around 1 to 2 weeks, 1 to 3 weeks after they've had the virus, we have had some children presenting with what we call a hyperinflammatory or a multi-system inflammatory disease.
That's a new thing that they're talking about, pediatric multi-system inflammatory syndrome or inflammatory multi-system syndrome, which in India, we started seeing it like the Kawasaki's disease.
Exactly. And so it's a Kawasaki's-like disease, meaning that it's an inflammatory disease that affects different parts of the body. Specifically, we have seen it a lot in children with heart failure that have presented with just isolated heart failure, and some children with what we call coronary issues. They have enlarged coronaries that, of course, the coronaries are the blood vessels that support the heart function. That is seen in a disease called Kawasaki's, as you mentioned. The important part of it is that in this presentation, the kids are older. That usually in Kawasaki's, the kids are less than 3 years of age. We are seeing children in 11-year-old teens that present with this. It is treatable. We have seen that it is treatable with supportive therapy, with gamma globulin therapy. Children get better. But we continue to follow this across, not just in our area, but across the nation, that this is a part of the disease presentation.
Yeah, but, because the general thinking is this disease does not affect children.
Well, it doesn't cause the problems that we see in adults. I wouldn't say that it doesn't affect children. Children get infected. And the question is, are children transmitting the disease to adults? Or are they, and that's one of the concerns. It appears that there's some evidence that it doesn't transmit as it does with adults to adults in terms of the increased transmission. But certainly that's one of the big concerns, and that's one of the concerns in terms of reentry or kids going back to school, college students going back to school. That transmission is going to be one of the big issues we've got to really keep a close eye on.
Okay, so what are the other, are you seeing any psychosocial issues in children?
Well, the psychosocial issues are the ones we're seeing with children sort of being isolated, right? The inability to get out was a big issue, get outside of their home or interact with other children. That's one of the big important parts of being in school, is that interaction. And how we've had to support the counseling of kids, providing information to parents about how to deal with that in terms of creating a social environment within the home is important for kids to deal with this isolation. But it's important also to note that kids are resilient, children are resilient, and helping them through this and giving them new tools is something that they really adapt to in dealing with that isolation.
Okay, are you seeing personality issues, Dr. Kevin?
We are. But that is the COVID crisis has, in some respects, exacerbated that. In that we have seen what we call our other epidemic is the behavioral health crisis in children. Children presenting with depression, with suicide ideation.
Okay, this is what I mean, which is very important because some of them get unmasked.
Yes, absolutely, especially with the isolation that occurs. But we're certainly seeing that in our children, especially in our adolescent population. This isolation, this fear of the pandemic has really sort of pushed forward children who have a tendency to have these types of behavioral health issues. And in some respects, it's overwhelming the systems that we care for them.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Kevin. Can I go to Dr. Alvin, Hong Kong? Dr. Alvin, please unmute.
Yeah.
Pediatrician in Hong Kong.
Yes.
What are you doing in Hong Kong among the children?
Problems in general and some problems quite specific to Hong Kong. So in general, students with the special education, and seeing there was in the special schools for those deaf children still put on masks. In that case, that would be a handicap to the teaching of the teachers, because even in the classroom, just face the students to put on the mask. Students, they need to have some compromise.
Actually,
they will
these
have to teach more.
Are the vulnerable children who have learned at this point.
Yeah, traction. A lot of occupational therapy and all those exercises could not be given through online teaching. And so even out, because there have been 4 months that have been locked down.
Yeah, but now Hong Kong, the students are back. The students are back.
Yeah. Just for the secondary schools, for the younger primary school students and the kindergarten students, they are not yet back to school. So the family violence.
Family, yes, that is a very big address that also after Dr. Alban, yeah.
Yeah, and in fact, also it's more difficult to teach the students nowadays because 80% of them have computer access in their own. Easy for them to get addicted to internet games and all those internet searching.
That I want Dr. Bamra to take that issue. So
yes. So I will leave this to them. But then of course, in our setting, about only 30% of our students would have lack of computer. 70% of them. So online teaching had been carried out for the past 5 months, and yet 30% of our students could not benefit from the online teaching, and that is another problem. So some problems that are specific to us in Hong Kong is first, there are some cross-border students. Say, some students are from mainland China, and for university students, of course, some are international students. These are big because students, they have to get back home. And then when they come back to Hong Kong after going back to their homeland, they also need quarantine for 14 days. So these are all practical issues. Well, worried about it in Hong Kong. Well, so of course, for the end of April until May, and so there have been no breakthrough university entrance examinations when examination hall. And yet there is no outbreak due to that so far. It's social and
we talked about it, Alvin, in the last time. Multiple with Jeffrey there. Multiple disruptions in education due to issues that is happening in Hong Kong.
In fact, so even last weekend, I mean, just yesterday, on outbreaks of protests, and almost half of those arrests to see that our students have their seeds of justice in their heart. Yes, I think this impering in public have been used to arrest people because of their public gathering more than 8 persons. And then for a purpose.
Yes, sir. Now I won't forget about the issue of violence at home. Dr. Kev, can you unmute Dr. Kev? Please?
Yes, well, the issue that Dr. Alvin brought up is, and it's really unclear if there's an increase due to the COVID pandemic, as opposed to the problem is that our ability to monitor the pandemic, in that we are the process and to support the children in these homes. And with that, we are seeing an increase in children presenting with abuse. And that's a problem that we've got to get solved.
Yes.
And that and understanding how we can stay safe, but also continue the work. And that's been talked about across the board. How we continue to work in schools, how do we continue to work in our colleges in this pandemic is vitally important. The work.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Bamra. Dr. Russell, you want to say something?
Let me want to say something here.
Dr. Bamra, you heard about. I want you to talk about the online, videos and stuff that which actually is not good for them. Can you tell us about the addiction, online addiction, either gaming or a lot of stuff? So can you tell us something about it?
So the Mary, statistics on this, because as Professor Churchwell was saying, it's really very difficult to know what's going on behind closed doors. But what we've seen is all sorts of online issues, not just gaming, but watching pornography, buying things,
yes,
unnecessarily included in this. So we've seen all sorts of things happening with the lockdown and things, the police and social workers not being able to, that certainly in terms of what is called the silent pandemic with children, 20 and adults. And there's a new kind of issue that has arisen in the UK, which is where I am, which is older children attacking parents because they can't use their video games, they can't do their stuff, they don't feel at liberty, they can't go out and play with their mates and that sort of thing. So there's a new phenomenon that we've certainly seen in the UK with older children. But it's, the issue is about, how do we monitor, how do we police this, how do we support children? And we're not giving clear messaging. All the messages that come out, certainly in the UK and probably in all other countries, they're all meant for adults. There are very, very few messages about, I'm not a pediatrician or a child psychiatrist, I'm a psychiatrist for people over the age of 18. But we know that all the messaging is about for adults and they're not for children. So there should be really something specific to help the nerves of children generally, and that doesn't seem to happen. And they get very confused messages. My school is going to open today. My school is not going to open today. My brother's going to go to school today. I might go next week, and that doesn't happen as well. So I am afraid there's a whole lot of confusion that the system has created for children, which has added to their stress, anxiety, and also suicidality. We've seen a rise in all of these incidents, as Dr. Churchwell was saying.
Okay, is there a particular, screen time, managing that screen time? Is there something to do with addiction? Like, after a certain number of hours, children get addicted or adults get addicted. Is there something in the literature?
There probably is, to be truthful, but not as I'm aware, because, I think that is a specialism in its own right. But I think we know that gaming and online playing between children has become even more of a problem, particularly with
because much of it, parents are now going for work and you cannot monitor the children. Children have access to the online whatever is online. So I think it has become an issue, but it hasn't no one is talking about it.
Well, no parent can go to work here if their child is under a certain age. So a parent has to, but it is very difficult for them to monitor things. Parents are under their own stress as well. Mm-hmm. And how much can you monitor children when they're stuck? We're not in a place where we effectively can put parental rights, even when we know how to. Do we know where the iPad is? No, in many instances we don't. So that sort of monitoring in a liberal society is really very difficult to do.
Yeah, and it's not only online gaming, it is also alcohol, drugs. All this probably has increased with this lockdown and the pandemic.
Yes, so you see different phenomenon in older children than you do in younger children, and certainly in older children, there's more of a issue with, although it seems that drugs, because the drug cartel have been hampered in how they distribute drugs, drugs have been less of a problem, I understand. We'll come to know in the fullness of time, but they can't seem to get children into their cabal as they used to do, because they used to, the predators sat outside of school, but now they can't do that anymore. So I think drugs, in a sense, has been less of a problem.
Okay, right. Thank you, Dr. Bamra.
Mary, can I bring in here, coming back to the university, to the students in the university, I wanted Professor Peter Frankel from the University, New York City College. He's been discussing areas where students are put at another disadvantage. Professor Peter Frankel, can you please elaborate? Maybe the panel you can put this to the panel. Do you want to go ahead?
Yes. Hi. Hello, everyone. It's a wonderful panel.
This is Peter Frankel from New York.
Right.
University, City College in New York.
That's right, City College. Well, thank you, Dr. Russell and Dr. Mary and everyone. You know, I'm a family psychologist. I teach family psychology, family systems, therapies, and at the doctoral and the master's and the undergraduate level. So I'm very attuned to issues going on for students in their homes. City College is was the first free university in the United States, founded in 1846, I believe. And it's had a tradition always of welcoming first-generation immigrants, and has always been a college of that sort. And that's the case in our student body now. Most of our students are from living in families, first generation in the United States, often struggling economically. In fact, in this context, many of the parents are, you know, what we call in New York, essential workers. And so they have still been going to work at low-paying jobs and being at tremendous risk for contracting COVID. Now, these students don't live, some have lived in dorms, but now, of course, they've returned home. Most are commuting, it's commuter school largely. And so they have been at risk, the students, of contracting coronavirus because a parent or an uncle might have it, or an aunt or a mother. And I have had several students whose family members have died. I had my honors student, undergraduate honors student, Mariana Adieb from Egypt. The weekend that she was finishing her thesis, which by the way won a big award in the department, her father was struggling to stay alive, and they're all in a very small apartment. So our students often work to support their families and themselves, and Mariana and other students in this context end up often as caretakers. So they're balancing, and we're talking about undergraduates, not just masters and doctoral students. In fact, primarily undergraduates. And most of our students now, I'd say, are from South Asia, Southeast Asia, East Asia, some from Eastern Europe, many Arabic countries. You know, the family is a very important entity in all of those cultures. And so these students have quite a lot on their shoulders. We've had even a few students die. It's very, very tragic. So we have a food pantry at City College. We've had that for several years. Of course, now students don't have access to that. And it had gotten quite a bit of traffic before that. I think 30% of students, if I'm not mistaken, have been using the food pantry, and now that's not available. So basically, as a faculty, we have the psychology department is a large department in the Colin Powell School, which is basically the social sciences school. You know, we've been meeting and really are dedicated to the kind of attention. I'm sorry, I don't remember who had mentioned this, but you know, trying to give as much personal attention to our students by phone, online, and so forth. Obviously, like most of you professors and teachers, our courses went online starting the third week of March. Actually, for most of us, I think we didn't experience that as too difficult. And I was teaching actually the second semester of a family and couple counseling course where there was a lot of role playing. It actually worked out quite well. But I think as Zara and Christia and Ali were talking about, the lack of proximal social connection has been very challenging for students. You know, I think we tend on Zoom to get very task focused, even in a sense with social interaction, as opposed to hanging out in the student union and just, you know, chatting and having a coffee. I see Christia's smiling because, you know, I think that's what students do, and it's such an important part of their lives.
So, Peter, may I interrupt you? You have systems in place to look after the students, right?
Well, yes, we do. I mean, the main system in place is that all of us faculty are really trying to keep the channels open with our students and let them know that if they need us, they need to talk with us, we're there to support them. We have in the doctoral program, we actually have a psychology clinic because we have a doctoral program in clinical psych, but of course that's closed. I think some of the student therapists have continued with their clients, half of whom are students. City College, you should know, is at 138th in Amsterdam. It's right in Harlem. So we also serve the Harlem community, which is largely African-American, Latinx, Afro-Caribbean. And we have a very strong dedication to community service at City College. Okay. And of course, those families are not having access. The other issue, I know I saw this in the chat, I believe. I'm looking at names here, but I think it was John Kilty who talked about the practicum courses. Did I get that right, John? Mentioning. So that has been very challenging for our counseling and doctoral students, particularly counseling students, because they have to do in the second year a 20-hour-a-week practicum at a local agency. Some of those, most of those actually have been able to transition online, but the students were terribly, terribly worried about whether they were going to be able to graduate. Luckily, they all did. We, as some of you others have said, we cut back on some of the requirements for the course. You know, I dropped the whole term paper.
Okay, Dr. Peter, I am sorry, I have to stop you because I need to give Dr. Deborah a chance, and we do still have some speakers panelists before we end the session. Sure. So I'm very sorry to cut you, but I need to go to Dr. Deborah from Brazil. Thank you very much.
Great. You're welcome.
Dr. Deborah.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
I would like to, here in Brazil is morning yet.
Yes.
I would like to say that it's an honor for me to participate in this event. And thank you, Dr. Russell, and you, Professor Mary, to the invite. And I also thanks to Dr. Rui Nunes, my professor from Portugal. And I would like also to greet Dr. Sérgio Rego from Brazil too, and on whose behalf I greet all participants.
Yeah, Dr. Deborah, can you tell us?
Here in Brazil, there are no planes to.
Sorry, sir, go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, the audio is not good for me. What did you say?
Please continue.
Here in my country, there are no plans to reopen the schools at the moment. I'm a teacher in a medicine school, and now we started to attend at the outpatient clinic with all the recommendation of the WHO, the World Health Organization.
Okay, so your schools have not been reopened, right?
Right. Here, no primary school and the high school, no. Only the outpatient clinic of the university is open.
Is open. Okay. I can go to Dr. Sergio. Yes. Can you unmute Dr. Sergio, please? Please unmute Dr. Sergio.
Okay. Hey, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Dr. Sergio, you've been listening to all what the panelists have to say, I hope.
Yeah. Sure.
Yes. Yeah. So you're a pediatrician in Brazil, right?
Yeah, I'm a registered pediatrician, but I'm far from the clinical practice for a long time. Actually, I'm a professor at the National School of Public Health and a bioethicist. But I'll also remember something about pediatrician.
Okay, so tell us about Brazil. What is happening? Are you seeing anything different right now in the society after this pandemic?
Yeah. Well, we have in Brazil a very complicated situation. Once our federal government understand that first the president said that the pandemic was a brief cold. Oh no, it's not very serious. And then was a media invention, and still now he is against all the social distance of the society, and he himself doesn't use masks. And
yes,
so,
I understand the number of cases in Brazil is also increasing.
Yeah, and we're doing so little quantity of tests, and so we can not even say how is the situation in fact. But they are planning to, they are starting to reopen the economy. Not the school yet, but the economy in general is open.
Okay, what are the effects that you've seen during the lockdown?
Well, during the lockdown, we had several different reactions according to the social class of the people. We have around 7% of the Brazilian population that lives with less than $1 a day. And well, we have our country is very unequal. And so the difficulties that the different classes will face, and they were able to cope in different ways. The medium class and the elite, they are very fine. They are fine, yeah. But
they're fine. That is the same in all over the world. It is the lower strata that has been affected the most. And especially in countries where the population is so high, when we say social distancing, it is impossible, you know, in these kind of areas. So I'm sure Brazil also, you know, is trying to cope the best way, but the cases are still increasing from what I understand.
Yeah, but I don't think that we are doing the best okay, because our federal government don't believe in the pandemic. And so we have two health ministers that were kicked off the job because they were trying to apply the technical solutions for the pandemic. And now we have a 3-star general of the army as interim minister of health. And so we don't have a really health planning, a national health planning. We have a crash between the federal government and the state and municipalities.
Okay, there is a question in the chat box from Praveen Gopinath that says, here in Kerala, there is a dedicated television channel for online classes. Any similar experience elsewhere? If so, how successful has it been? It's open to all the panelists. Dedicated television channels for online classes. Is it there in Hong Kong, John Kilty?
one of the problems that we have that even in the private universities, for example, we don't have universal access to internet. And,
okay, yeah, same, yeah.
Especially to students, children,
difficult.
They don't have it. Yeah.
Online classes.
We are trying to plan a way to give access to the university students with some kind of well-elaborated course on distance.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Sergio. Thank you very much. Any comments from any of the panelists before I move on to,
yes,
I need to bring in Gloria and, yes? Yes.
I have a comment.
Yeah, yes,
I'm a professor in a private school of medicine.
Yes.
And Nova Esperança is the name. And here we can give some classes online.
Okay.
When it's possible, when how can I say, sorry, my English is not very good. When it's possible, we gave classes online, not practice class, of course, not practice class. We are going to teach them after when they reopen the schools, but some kinds of class we can give by internet. It's the difference.
Yes, okay, thank
Brazil,
you. Yes,
Brazil is a big country, so it's very different. Yes, the reality is very difficult. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Deborah. Baroness Finlay has written, the BBC has done an amazing job trying to create educational programs, and also the Sunday papers try to include material to help parents. I think that is a very good way of disseminating information. Now, one of the problems which when I was talking to my colleagues when we're talking about children and students is, how do we teach children about this COVID-19? Not the older children, the smaller children. How do we teach them? And because most of the children have been frightened to such an extent that they don't want to get out of home. So this led me to look into, WHO has released a book. I want all of you to, at least take a look at it. It is a book for children regarding this COVID-19 pandemic, how to teach the children about COVID-19 pandemic. And it is in, they have done it with United Nations Children Fund and the Red Cross and Red Crescent together and other partners. And the book is called, it's available online, it's called My Hero Is You. And this little book provides, it's like a story book where they have created a fantasy creature called Ario. And this Ario is a creature that takes a little girl called Sarah to different parts of the world teaching about COVID-19. And I think that is a very beautiful book. If you have, as teachers and as parents, if you want to teach your children about COVID-19, it is an illustrative book that you can use. You can download it straight from the net. It is from the WHO. So I want all the panelists and the participants to be aware that if you have children who need to know about COVID-19 infection and about it, you can use try and use that book. That is one. Having said that, now I want to go to two people who we have still not addressed. That is Gloria and Professor Harold. Now, Gloria is a very interesting person. She is a children's author. And we say, how do we look after our children in this pandemic? It's very difficult on the parent. It's very difficult for the child also. But stories is one way by which you can help children overcome this pandemic. And Gloria is a children's author. Please correct me if I'm wrong, Gloria.
That's correct.
Yes, and you have immense experience regarding children's stories, right? Can you share with us what you've been doing during the pandemic and during this whole time about, how about your experience and how you have translated them into children's stories?
Well, my experience as a children's author, especially a children's author of color, is to visit schools to let kids know of all races that there are people who've done some wonderful things, and they're all different colors. And I try to talk mostly about unsung heroes that are African American. And when we think about this pandemic, it's been talked about where we know the adults, we know the graduate students, and we know the doctoral students as well as the undergraduate students have issues. Can we imagine what the children are going through at this time?
Yes, because, Gloria, just to interrupt you, we think when we think of children, we think like, 6 to 9, 10, we can tell them something. But what about these little small teeny tots? How do we teach them about the pandemic?
Well, there are different ways to do that. There are, as you said, there are books out there now that are that you can do that. Sesame Street has some great online courses that sort of walk through kids, things that are going on. I know CNN, the television station here, I'm sure you all have your equivalents where they talk about the pandemic to young kids. And so there are different ways, and there are different resources that are available out there where you can discuss this very important issue with children, and to break it down in a way that they understand it.
Okay, so can you tell us about your work, what you've been doing?
Well, my book is called Follow Chester, and you may see it in the background. It's about a man, Dr. Chester Pierce, who went to
Could Dr. Kevin put it on the chat box, Gloria's book, so that everyone can access it? Is it available, Gloria?
Oh yes, we could definitely do that. Yeah, okay. And my husband Kevin can help me with that. You can help me with that, Kevin. I would appreciate that. Yes, but the idea is that Dr. Chester Pierce, he went to undergraduate at Harvard as well as Harvard Medical School. He did a lot of wonderful things as far as being a well-known, renowned psychiatrist. But most importantly for kids, that's not important to them. What's important to kids is that what did he do that I can connect with? And the story that they can connect with him is that he was the first African-American to play football south of the Mason-Dixon line. And that's important in the United States because it allows kids to know that at a different time, Blacks were treated differently. Now, some people may say that that's still going on with the Black Lives Matter movement, and I would definitely agree with that. But the idea is that the story, Follow Chester, kids are able to take that story, and a true story, I've been told that they've told me they've taken that story and they've actually utilized it when they've gone to protest. And these have been like rising fourth graders. And they told me, Mrs. Churchwell, I used your book, Follow Chester, as an example to know that you should stand up for your rights. And even though this story happened in 1947, it's still relevant today in 2020. And also, not only did Chester stand up for his rights, but his white friends stood with him. And I think that's the most important piece in the story is that in order to do this, we need to do this as allies. As you all know, when you have a problem, it's wonderful when you're there, you're trying to solve that problem, but it's great when you have your colleagues there to help you. And so this story definitely has that powerful theme that when we do things as allies, when we work together, we can make some positive change.
Yeah, I think story is a very nice way of teaching children about a lot of issues, not only racism, but also, regarding this pandemic. And
I think Alvin just had a point, Dr. Mary.
One moment, Dr. Derek, let me just finish. The thing is, what do you think about children writing COVID diaries?
I think it's
keeping a COVID diary. Well, do you think it's helpful for the child?
It's definitely helpful because it allows them to cope with their feelings and write those feelings down. And also, as they get older, they can look back and see how far they've come in their journey, and it can be very inspirational as well.
Yeah, Harold, I'll come back to you. Harold, I just want Nomi in. Is Nomi there?
Yeah, she's here.
Nomi, I'm bringing back the issues of children and psychological issues of children. Your thoughts on children writing diaries, during this pandemic. Do you recommend it to, we have principals here, teachers here. Do you recommend it to them, that children keep a diary?
Yeah. I should say I'm not a child psychiatrist, and so I don't want to speak specifically. And I think it's very neurodevelopmentally different. I think that we know that narrative piece can be very useful, and so I think for many children, especially if they have an interest in doing it, I think the voluntariness is probably very important. If they think that this would be useful, giving them that book as a special place for them to record their feelings is a very useful thing to do. And sometimes it can also be a very helpful catalyst for a discussion of the feelings between parent and child. And so, you know, these diaries can also have these dual roles and dual tensions. So if a child is writing something that they don't want their parents to see as opposed to they do, I think that frame has to be very clear from the front end. Otherwise, there can be a sense of you know, either support or violation, depending on how they understood their writing to go.
Yeah, thank you, Naomi, because we need to focus on the little people also. It is not just, you know, adults, because like Dr. Bamra said, every material literature is out there for the adults, but we're not doing much for the children. So it's important as teachers, as, you know, principals, that we also address those kind of issues, that small children and, you know, children who are, you know, before their teens, prior to teens, are also looked out and looked after.
Yeah,
so
I would say the important is we always want to be able to identify for them what they can do as opposed to what they can't do. And that can actually take a little bit of extra work on the adults' part.
Yes, thank you so much. Dr. Alvin, did you want to say something? Where are you? We can't see you.
Professor.
We can only see your hand. We can see a hand, but we can't see you. Okay, go ahead.
Professor?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. I have a point to add. Just like writing a book or even comics, serial comics, I think music
yes,
and the songs are also important.
I'm so sorry, Dr. Alvin. I forgot to tell the panelists. Dr. Alvin has composed a song on how to wash hands, and I think we can put it for all the panelists to listen to. So he's a musician also. Yes.
Yeah, in fact, it's a song for children. And because I think they are not there to listen to long theories and rules, but using music and stories and art, they could learn more about this prevention of COVID-19 and integrate into their thoughts and making it a habit. So that's what I think is important. So we had even organized some music competition in Hong Kong. So students can also empower themselves by writing songs themselves. And of course, just by the way, sometimes say the song that I have written, it even entered to a pop chart for internet music. Oh, and so that's spread far and wide to the community. Yes. And in a way, the population is more receptive to the advice from the doctors. That's what I mean.
Yes,
so thank you.
Thank you, Alvin. I forgot to say that, Dr. Alvin. I'm sorry. So I think we've discussed a lot of things. There are many ways. I think someone, I'm not sure. Yeah, Peter Mose has put there saying that you can use comics. So we've talked about books. We have talked about, you know, music, comics. You know, the last one I want to come back to is this is our final closing is with Dr. Harold. Dr. Harold uses art to teach, and he will give us a short presentation, and then we will close finally, you know, this session on reopening schools, ethics of reopening schools and colleges. Dr. Harold.
Thank you, Mary.
The screen is yours. The screen is yours.
And thank you for composing this this sequence. I'm going to try to share my screen, if I can, with everyone. Let's see, am I sharing my screen now? Share. Can people see my screen?
Yes.
Wonderful. Again, the composition, Mary, that you and Russell have put together, the sequence is itself a kind of symphony for me. It has been throughout, and I continue to learn. So thank you everyone who's participated for continuing not only my own education, but continuing my own consolation. Because I think we are in a time when there is a place for consolation, for grief work to be done. There's no two ways around it. The work that Gloria has done, these are stories not only for children, they inspire me as well. They inspire me in a deep and fundamental way. She also, in addition to the book that she's written on Chet Pierce, who's a friend of mine and a colleague of mine, she's written a book about her father-in-law, Kevin's father, Robert Churchill, which talks about how a child in grief is able to go ahead and cope with grief and racism and aloneness all at once when she loses her father and she has to move. And I would see that speaks to all of us, to the child at heart in all of us. Now, I'm currently wearing a hat. Now, why the heck am I wearing a hat? I'm wearing a hat because there's a sun. We have a beautiful skylight above me, except occasionally it glares in my face. And since my mother died from a ocular melanoma, this is my own protection. We still think that we all have ways of both grieving and protecting ourselves. So, by the way, Dr. Chen, I would love to hear your music because my mother loved to go ahead and love music, loved to sing. And I found it as a tremendous inspiration as a child growing up in post-genocide Poland, where I had lost 48 of my 50 cousins, 18 of my 20 aunts and uncles, and so on, who were murdered in that. And my mother's singing and voice were always a huge consolation, as were the stories such as Gloria tells. So again, this is, I think, something which is vital. If we're going to be reopening education, we have to go ahead and help our teachers and our students, all of us, to grieve, because we just have had some time stolen in the pandemic itself. Per Shakespeare, we are time subjects and time bids us be gone. That's from Henry IV. And bioethics is part of philosophy. And philosophy from Socrates to Dewey has been always considered to be fundamental to education. So we must not forget philosophy as being part of reopening education. And we must not forget that in itself, philosophy is a consolation for death and for grief. What you see here is a portrait by Henry Moore, which I've used previously, not my previous talk here, but this is a different context. Here, Henry Moore, a British well-known sculptor more than a painter, but this is a work by him of a miner in 1942 in darkness, because the world is still dark. And let's not forget, the world is still dark, even though we do our best to have enlightenment. And what we have to face at this point is a certain kind of denial of mortality and denial of aging, denial of entropy, which has kept us sane at all developmental levels. But again, time is a thief, my lord, and in his wallet he has arms for oblivion. Again, I'm stealing from Shakespeare here, so please forgive me. We have to be careful of is we don't go is of the telltale heart. This is Two Telltales. It's a work by Kathy Karlowitz, which she was writing about the rise of fascism post World War I and the Spanish flu in Germany. And I worry that we may have a recurrence of authoritarianism, which will follow this pandemic, and universities themselves are hotbeds for authoritarianism to arise and to nurture authoritarianism. So I think we have to be aware of this as we prepare. We also have to be worried about the emphasis on appearance. You know, the internet does close-ups. So whenever you learn on the internet, people begin to watch themselves a lot. And what happens is people begin to put on even more masks, not just the figurative masks to protect ourselves from COVID, but the masks to protect ourselves from close-ups. I mean, it's almost inevitable when you see yourself to go ahead and put on a mask to some extent. We are all social creatures, social beings, but that leads to kind of an authenticity that Goya, I think, touched on in a very profound way. We also, this is a work by one of my favorite painters and friends, Hyman Bloom, The Flaying of Marsyas. We also have to be careful of perfectionism and malignant competition. I worry that when schools reopen, there will be a huge amount of competition. Who can be more perfect? My teacher is imperfect. I have to complain. My grade is only an A-. Shocking. I have to complain because we are so helpless. We want to control, you know. An A minus all of a sudden becomes something to be ashamed of, or humiliated by, because we are humiliated by the fact that we are human beings and we are all mortal. And that is really terrible. Not to mention how that humiliation gets compounded by racism, anti-Semitism, xenophobia, you name it. You know, we find all kinds of ways of compounding the humiliation of others to avoid feeling humiliated ourselves. What we have to really be very careful of is that this is the Hyman Bloom's theory where he took off on Turner. I was introduced to Turner a long time ago by a dear friend of mine who is himself a wonderful ethicist. But this was Hyman Bloom's answer to Turner and Turner's slave ship, where there was no longer a ship from which the slaves are being thrown off. We are all slaves in this predatory sea, and we can all be slaves if we lose self-control. And that's very, very important to keep in mind, because I think there is going to be an urge to go ahead and to say, okay, either we are authoritarian or we are anarchists. And so either we control other people or we don't control ourselves. And both have to be avoided at all costs. Now, how do we keep hope alive? How do we keep hope alive when there may be a second wave, a third wave, and so on? Well, again, keeping in mind that we being able to acknowledge our helplessness, our mortality, actually in a funny kind of way gives us hope. Here's my mother as part of a slave labor resistance group with her friends, and they would sing songs such as "We Will Not Be the Last of the Mohicans." Now, what the heck is a James Fenimore Cooper story doing in Poland in 1942-43? Well, somehow it had gotten transmitted and it became a song that people sang. There's a wonderful B.B. King riff about a time, which again, so focus, uses the same, there's various kinds of ways to keep spirits up, even in the face of hopelessness. And surely we have to beware that our students will be coming from a climate of despair, sometimes because all of a sudden you're exposed to family violence. All of a sudden you're exposed to family dynamics that you would rather not be. All of a sudden, the racism that you've put out of your mind is coming back to hit you in a very fundamental way. So again, I think we have to we give people resources to maintain hope. The way my parents dealt with it is right after liberation, they put up a tombstone to my mother's mother, who had died earlier, but that tombstone had been knocked down. So we have to keep heritage alive, including our own family heritage. And I would very much say that for any recommendation for any of us, teacher or student, is to go back into our own families and to think about those times that our own families have been able to overcome almost impossible odds. This is a huge resource which we should not neglect. Finally, this was Hyman Bloom's. He painted a lot of rabbis. Now, do you know what rabbi means in the Jewish heritage? It's very simple. It means teacher. All a rabbi is a teacher. That's what it means. There's no special holy man, designation. A rabbi is a teacher. As teachers, we have to keep in mind that no matter what the fear is, we have to hold on to our fundamental values. Those include social justice. Those include asking not only what is good, but also what is true and what is beautiful. And how do we put it all together? So again, thank you for putting it all together. Russell and Mary, bravo. Thanks so much, guys, really.
Thank you, Professor Harold. Thank you. It's like, it's like a big finale and ending with a bang. Thank you for sharing and putting all your thoughts into art. And these are mediums of expression that we can use for our children, for the parents, even for ourselves, expressing ourselves, through all these mediums, which is, very, very helpful. So I thank all of you. Any last questions from the panelists? Gloria, I don't think they've shared your, people are sharing their songs and music, but we don't see your book being shared here on the chat. So Dr. Kevin, you haven't shared her book on the chat?
Kevin did, maybe both books, also the Robert Churchill book, because I think that also is extraordinarily relevant, as is the Chet Pierce book.
Okay, so to all the participants, please, a lot of information is available on the chat, so you can go through that. Thank you, all of you. Such a beautiful session. The last one was beautiful, but this is even better. And thank you, Professor Harold, for closing it with a bang. And I hope we are continuing this series, these webinar series till the lockdown. And after that, we have to find ways of connecting with all of you. So thank you very much. Thank you. All of you have taken your precious time to come and exchange. This is a platform for us to share and support. And that is very important. So anyone has any last words, would like to say anything? And I thank Zara is still there. So I thank you for staying on, Zara.
You have Christia also.
Christia and Hadi are both there, so
they're
we're
also
grateful
there.
for hanging around, guys, and all the best for your future endeavors.
Yeah, all three of you. And Dr. Kevin, you raised your hand. You wanted to say something?
Yes, I just wanted to say I sent the link for Gloria's book through Amazon on the chat. You can purchase it through Amazon. Follow Chester.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And I just wanted to say you were fabulous. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr.
To manage this was just incredible, and it was just such a great, enriching opportunity of learning. So thank you so much, Mary.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you indeed.
So I will hand to Dr. Russell.
Thank you, Mary. I want to share with Mary that this has been tremendous. We've had art, we've had music, and I agree with Harold and all the others that every one of these sessions have been learning. We've all learned, and I think it's the diversity. We had, in fact, we should have asked Alvin to give a song, because he sent me his band and himself singing. I
believe Peter is also a musician. We have a very talented panelist.
Peter's ready.
He's a drummer.
He's a drummer, and he's written some stuff on percussion.
That's especially for Deborah from Brazil.
Yeah, I think I am too shy to sing here. I think it's good to have Peter to play for us. Thank you.
Dr. Russell.
Whatever you think, we together, all of us, our participants and our panelists and so forth, we represent humanity on this earth. Don't you agree with me? We are from all parts of the world, right from the northern hemisphere to the southern hemisphere, from east to west. We have everyone here, all contributing. That we are together in this, and we are going to come out of this with solidarity and care. And I think nothing better than we went through our beautiful students from schools to colleges, their principals, their teachers, listening to what this has been an opportunity, not just to listen to your students in your class, but to get an opportunity to listen to students across the world. From if you take the four from last year Sunday to what we have here today, we've seen the world, right, from east to west. And all of you, faculty, we've had principals from all of you here who have contributed and are continuing to contribute to building these, chair teaching and chair from schools to the ultimate professionals. And we hear and see and hear today how the different aspect, a different school, different stages, what is worrying them. And we hear today that we're seeing the students now worrying about the economy, the future, where are they going? And you could see how this takes us, and I think it's a great understanding, and it makes us all understand, empathize, and see how best we all can work together in bringing success. And we had some beautiful ways today, from stories to music to art, percussion, and so forth. I think we have to congratulate all of us ourselves here for making this, taking the time, coming out, and together bringing this great opportunity. We hope to continue to bring these interesting and different aspects that COVID has brought us together. We probably would never have met each other. We've been now going on like this. We met here with all these distinguished panelists, distinguished participants. We have on our participants here, wonderful people who have taken part in the past, who are part of this program, and so forth. So I think it is we got to look at the positive, and I think while the world is struggling, we are also coming out, and this is one of the positive things. We've been meeting like this, and you'll see that all the panelists become part of this. We have a committee of panelists who will continue to contribute, and we hope that the chat box, and we are there, to continue this conversation, as Harold has brought to it. We started this conversation, and a deep conversation, an opportunity for this great conversation, and for you to go on. And I like the way Harold brings this out, that this is a symphony, right? He brings the composers, and he puts it together. How we put it from a musical perspective, art perspective, and I think what a wonderful 2 hours, or a little more than 2 hours, we've spent here in solidarity, and I think this is a great moment. I want to thank all of you. I want to thank Dr. Mary Matthew, Dr. Derek, who both of them who are together with me have put this, along with our other committee members, Animesh Jain, the principality, Dr. Bedi, Sanjay Bedi, and of course the other team here. We have Joe Thornton, Professor Joe Thornton, Stacy Gallen, Gerard Fortwinkle from Germany, D.S. Bamra, who you met, Dr. Baroness Ilora Finlay, who's on here, who's been very active on the chat box. She's been there for almost every one of them. So all of us together here, I want to thank all of you, and we shall. And before we finish, if there's anything, there's an opportunity. If any of you want to say something or want to make a comment, please do that before we wish each other to stay well and stay safe. If there's anyone who likes to
Russell, we want to thank you for this extraordinary series. You've really pulled together. It's just been marvelous. All 12 sessions have been just fantastic. And you and Mary and Derek and Gilles who put it all together deserve a lot of credit. This has really been a very unique, as well as tremendously educational experience. And it's just been wonderful to hear from our colleagues throughout the world. As you say, pulling together in terms of dealing with the pandemic and its repercussions for old and young people. So thank you very, very much for pulling this all together.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you very much for your being there and taking part in this and contributing at all times. Thank you very much. All right. If there's anyone else who wants to make come to our group here,
I just want to thank you for having me here. This was a very informative session, and I had a great time, and it just gave me a good opportunity to start something. Like, it's new for me, this kind of things. I have never done this before, so this was a great opportunity for me.
Wish you all the best, Hadi.
Yeah, thank you.
We wish all of you, the students, all the very best. And Steve Bellasini, I know that it's coming the end of your day. Is there anything you'd like to say? Steve is going to be completing many years. He's decided to call it. He's been a principal, I think, for 3 or 4 decades, and he's going to end in a couple of weeks. He's decided to move to rest and move into another field. So, Steve, after 4 decades or 5 decades of teaching and being a principal, this might be a good finale for you. That in the next few weeks, I think you'll be finishing your mandate.
Thank you, Russell, and thanks to the panel for letting me contribute and to be a part of the discussion. I learned a lot, and it'll add to a lot of the work I've done at my school. And I did a questionnaire during the week with all my students, which I haven't got time to share now, but it was really interesting, some of their responses. So it's been a real catalyst, if you like, for me to look much further into the practice in my particular school. So thanks for everyone for this opportunity.
All right, thank you, Steve. And maybe I should welcome and thank our panelists from Brazil. We brought. Sorry, you want to say something, Deborah? Okay,
Yes.
Go ahead. And Sergio.
Thanks, Dr. Russell. I want to thank you once more. It's very important for me to discuss this kind of issues with you. And I want to invite you to the 40th We have a Congress about bioethics next year on March in Porto, Portugal. And I want to invite all you to be present there. It will be a pleasure for us. I'm hoping them in the organization committee. So I will be very happy to meet you there. Thank you very much.
Dr. Deborah, we are all registered. We are there.
Well, that's the UNESCO. That's the 14th World Conference of the UNESCO Chair, and we will all be there. And I'm delighted that we had Brazil, and I know that Sergio, Professor Sergio Rigo, he was concerned that we were trying to bring Brazil, and we brought Argentina, and I'm delighted that in the last 2 meetings we've had Brazil also join us. We had China, we've had virtually a lot of Africa, and now we have Brazil also there. So, Sergio, before we end, would you like to say something?
Yeah, I would like to thank you all, and also congratulate you for the organizing of these meetings, and also Professor Carmi, and hoping that we can help more and more to make this network working better and better, because it's very important for the world and for the global health, and to dialogue south-south, south-north, and that's why we would like to help. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Then till we meet again, stay safe and stay very well. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.